those who don't know, I mean, squibs are actual explosive packs attached to an actor, and so that's why.
Thank you, because I don't know what the hell he was talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
You using words. I'm sitting here like, I'm trying to wake up. Talking about squigs. What is that?
The search of the 3 missing Montgomery College students continues in Frederick County.
And I got to play with your wand. It was great.
Definitely fun. Keep going. If I did a minute, it'd all have to be crowd work.
I heard somebody say that who's bombed before.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're here. Welcome to Footage Foreplay. We're here with Remington. Hi, Remington. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Did I say your name right? Remington?
Yes.
Okay.
Like the firearm. Remington.
Okay. It sounds like something straight out of his movie. LandLord. Yes. I'm excited to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I've got the family hiding upstairs during the Q&A. So if they randomly
they're hiding. You locked them away, Remington? Oh Lord. Okay. Well, Remington, tell us how you got your start in this genre, making movies and getting on to horror and all that good stuff.
My track into filmmaking was kind of very circuitous. I was originally going to be just a high school history teacher.
That's boring.
I mean, no, it's great.
Oh God!
If you like history, it's not. It's boring to you, Turtle.
Wait, sorry, I just woke up. Okay, so I'm trying to get history. I fell asleep in those classes.
I think it depends on your teacher. Like I had a really great history teacher. I mean, he may have only been like 10 or 15 years older than me, so he brought a lot of energy into the classroom. And there was a real storytelling component to it. And so to be able to talk about things you were interested in and share that with others, that was something that seemed like, okay, this seems like maybe a path, more specifically too, of like a path out of poverty was my experience. And so I loved movies, but I just didn't think like anything creative is something that you can make a living out of. And I certainly didn't know anybody who was doing that at the time. But meanwhile, like, one of the first movies that I saw when I was a kid that I can remember is like, I think my dad showed me The Monster Squad when I was like 5.
Hell yeah.
Oh, so Russell did his child just now.
Yep.
3.
Not my fault.
Yeah. And so, the idea that you had these things that don't exist, but like filmmakers and special effects people were making them real, like out of liquid latex and stuff, was fascinating to me. So my entree into film was really through the special effects side of things and being very curious about how they did things. And then it was only maybe in high school that, I'm just starting to consume all of the bonus features of movies. And I'm like pausing The Matrix Revisited on behind the scenes shots to be like, okay, I wonder what that does. And I think I could see how these things are operating. And so just out of my own omnivorous curiosity about the filmmaking process, I realized in hindsight, it was almost like this soft film school I've been putting myself through. And so while I was working on my history degree, I started running a campus movie theater, and I was bullshitting with some of my friends about some movie ideas. Like, wouldn't it be funny if we did a zombie movie like X? And then like a few months later, I had my friends opening the trunk of my old Buick where my brother was in zombie makeup and jumped out. And so that was my start. It was just like, I was not the guy who really liked to go to parties, or just go to a bar and drink. It was like, I want activity. Like, let's go look at the abandoned house down the street, or let's go to that drive-in screen down the road and like climb the back of it.
Wow.
So filmmaking
adventurous.
Filmmaking became like a constructive bit of that kind of adventuring. So that's kind of how I gradually ended up here. So
Can I ask you, I completely relate to what you're saying. And I remember I had a moment where we out here in the Bay Area, there's a store called Amoeba, and they're a used record store, but they also have like movies. And we would go there and they had a cult section, and we would just buy anything to watch while getting wasted. And I remember one day we stumbled upon like, somebody had asked about the movie playing in the TV in Belly. And then I found Gummo at Amoeba. And
Mhm.
we were like drinking 40s, like taking shots while watching that. And I remember I had a moment where I'm like, no, there's more to this movie than just getting like wasted. And I remember it kind of I had that same reflection where I'm like, dude, I'm like filling my time with just like blacking out and like hanging out with people, and I think I'd like to be more productive. And then, I went down that road, but I had this moment where I decided I wasn't going to drink one day and we should go do a thing. And I realized everybody I'm hanging out with, I have nothing in common with them. And it was like, oh, this sucks. Like drinking with some sort of Band-Aid. But now, I feel like film, like making it also can be that, where all these people have different interests. You come together and make like a collaborative art. Did you have like a film? Like, I also watched Monster Squad when I was very young, but was there something when you were an adult that kind of sent you down the more highbrow filmmaking path I would say you're on now?
Yeah, I think it was twofold, because the first couple of shorts that I did, it was let's do something fun. And, so it's more something that seems like, oh, this is like a student film hijinks. You're not really taking yourself that seriously.
Yeah.
But seeing those play in a theater with people responding to it, that was when I made my first more dramatic horror short. I was like, well, what happens if I take it seriously? Can I pull that off? And
was that The Woods?
No, actually, it was a film called Dawn of the Living. Did it in 2010, but in hindsight, I guess it is related to The Woods, because it was like, how do you take zombies seriously, and
Right.
maybe the emotional component of like your connection to other people who may or may not be zombies.
Yeah, The Woods was great. I watched it after LandLord. I went through your shorts. The only thing I haven't seen that I found on Letterboxd is the feature-length doc you did, Rubber Town.
Yeah,
Rubber Town.
And I want to watch it too.
Not condoms, Terrell.
I was wondering, Rubber Town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's this heavy industrial area of Louisville, where, especially in World War II, all this synthetic rubber companies started to pop up. But it was right next to residential housing. And so the same time that I was doing The Woods, I was working on Rubber Town as my thesis project, because I can never just do one at the same time. It seemed I was doing a doc, but then at the same time, I wanted to graduate with a calling card narrative movie. And so Rubber Town was like a real huge leap in terms of like, how do you do a long form documentary? And then all of the lessons from Rubber Town were then funneled into the short doc, The Derby. So the Derby has more production. The Derby has better production value because I had already learned a lot on Rubber Town, but Rubber Town is still until LandLord, the film. I think because it's longer and because it's still dealing with some of the environmental hazards that people are dealing with in Louisville, that people still ask me about the most. But yeah, I mean, the thing that switched me more into a more serious mood, I think in some of the more recent stuff, I do think it's a twofold. One, when I was running the campus movie theater, I saw Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck's Half Nelson. And kind of a neo-realist movie. And it was the first time I'd encountered something like that, where it seemed very stripped down and dealing with people in a high school that felt very like, oh, this is coming from something that I've experienced. Like, this feels like a part of just day-to-day living. And then in 2010, 2011, I rented a copy, I don't know why, a copy of Fish Tank. And it just blew my hair back. And I was like, oh, this girl, Mia, is like my teen years, other than the sexual dynamic with Michael Fassbender. But like,
okay,
Mia,
sorry to hear that.
Mia trying to get out of poverty in these like town councils in the UK. I was like, somebody just wrote a movie about my teen years and just like trying to get out, but also in a way that I think Hollywood typically does with narratives about poverty, which is just poverty porn. There's a whole lot of apologizing almost for the fact that characters are in poverty or over explaining. But Andrea Arnold, who came up in a council estate like this, she doesn't treat it that way. And so there became this synthesis between these neo-realist movies. And then I think for me, getting away from home, starting to find some stability that I didn't have when I was a kid, and then reflecting on those things and like, what does it mean to survive poverty? What does it mean, and what do you owe once you do get out? And I think definitely trying to paint portraits of people that are on the margins in a more humanized way from people who actually have direct experience with it then kind of became a priority. And at the same time, I would love to go back and do another comedy. Like so, some lighter fare would be good, because it's hard work when you are doing stuff that is dealing with a lot of social issues. Like when I was editing Rubber Town, there were periods where it was really hard to work with the footage because it's just like I met this person, but I also know people who are dealing with the exact same things and the emotional traumas, and it's hard when you're editing that footage over and over and over again. And then the weight of it where you hope you've done right by their stories, So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because okay, I want to tie this back into LandLord, and I have, so I saw it at Another Hole in the Head, and we trapped you. Thank you for being so cool.
No.
We trapped you outside the theater till midnight. And it was cold. I think it was literally the coldest it had ever been in the Bay in recorded history. And we were just standing there like, but you were such an enigma to me because Another Hole in the Head, again, I've talked about it on here before. Their programming is kind of like light, fun, party, horror, comedy stuff. And then every now and then, I mean, last week we talked to Susie Block, who was part of Interaction, which is just like brutal, like Michael Haneke type shit. And then I'm watching your movie and I was trying to figure out who you were from your film. And I'm like, the first thing that happens, and I apologize if you're not familiar with LandLord, but I would like to get into spoiler territory. But this has to do with marketing. Now, when we jump on IMDb, like I'm sure most people will, when they're like, oh, LandLord, what movie is that? So I'm going to pull this up. Spoilers. That's my problem. What the hell, dude? What? So I went in blind. And I have to say, the whole genre element here of like a vampire being involved, it caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. Because your film, it operates on more of like a fish tank, kind of a meditative social movie that's clearly got a genre leaning, like, but it felt more action and like suspense. And then I'm like, oh, no, we're going full horror. But yet, when we go on your YouTube channel, your own trailer, you don't reveal the vampire element. So what's the thought here behind like I'm curious because I'm guessing you had control over all this, right?
Yeah. So for the official teaser that was released, it's funny. I'd cut two different teasers together. One that I was playing with some of the Western structure of the film. Our hero, played by Adama Abramson, is kind of meant to be this update to the man with no name, comes into town and then finds, something's amiss. So I cut together that teaser and then another that just leaned more into the drama aspects of it. And then my buddy Yates, who shot The Woods for me, is also a Madman editor. And I gave him the footage and I was like, what would you do for it? And this was the teaser that he cut for it. And so for us, I think we both come from a background of like less is more, and especially if it's a teaser trailer, visuals and music and a vibe that makes you want to know more. I think that's always the thing that gets me excited about a movie versus a whole 2-minute trailer. Yeah. So it's funny you bring up the vampire element not really being highly featured because I'm so close to it. I don't even know if I'd really blocked that until just now, because I've been so used to working with the material.
Right.
But of the 3 trailers, the 2 that I cut and then this one that Yates has cut one out amongst all of the responses from people. So I was just like, I just went where the audience told me to go and not really thought about it much beyond that.
Well, it immediately reminded me of Terrell, I need your help. What was the like Ocean's 11 type movie where it turned out that they were going to rescue a girl who was kidnapped and she was a vampire ballerina?
Abigail.
Abigail, yeah.
Yes,
You remember?
Melissa Barrera. Yes.
Yeah, audiences were like, why the fuck did you put that in the trailer? Like, this could have been like a Howling moment where you're like, holy shit, she's a vampire.
That would have been
the whole
more
time
exciting if you find out later, like, oh, yeah, it's a vampire. Yep.
But I mean, I understand, like, maybe people wouldn't show up if they didn't know it was a vampire movie. But then it's like, why does this always happen to vampires? So yeah, I was confused mostly by yours because your film is so well paced. Like, I mean, we sat out there and talked about Dean Kundi forever and just like framing. And like, when you got up and did a Q&A, the references for your movie were Florida Project, Fish Tank. It's like, wait, what the hell?
Florida Project. Oh, wow.
I can totally see that.
Oh,
honestly.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like narratively, I think, but in terms of like the jumping off points for the story, it was definitely the way I talk to people about it is John Carpenter's The Fog meets Andrea Arnold's Fish Tank. I mean, literally, my colorist and cinematographer and we met, and Duncan at Post 237 had an image that I had provided from Fish Tank, and then what was our LUT going to be for the day stuff. So all the day stuff was based on reference stills from Fish Tank. And then at night, then we had a separate LUT and had images from The Fog up as reference. And so while we were on set, I wanted to make sure that I had LUTs that would give us what the final look was going to look like. Because I've been on those sets occasionally where people are shooting and lighting towards a flat image, and then too much is left up in post to try and remember what you wanted it to look like. And is the lighting actually lining up with the color grade? So those were reference images that we had. But when I started writing the script, it was like, I loved Ghost Dog. I love No Country for Old Men.
Ghost Dog's sick.
And so like those movies where it's a lot of watching people do stuff and figure out what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. Because it's just inherently cinematic and interesting to me. And so, you know, if people don't really like my doc work, if people didn't like The Woods, which is dialogue free, you know, LandLord may not be their cup of tea, but some of the most interesting compliments I've received have specifically been from people who said, I've been watching a lot of TV, and watching your movie made me realize how much TV dialogue is just explaining what's happening on screen.
Yeah.
Whereas your movie, I actually have to watch. I have to pay attention. And I was just like, that's cool. And at the same time, if general audience members are picking up on this trend, that's kind of wild to me, where and then illustrates like why you need movies that do this, because if everyone's doing one thing, then obviously there's something being underserved, you know?
Well, I'm sure you heard about like the Netflix notes, right?
Yeah.
The fact that general audiences though are now feeling it. Like this was somebody at the Louisville premiere event we had. They're not a cinephile. They're not watching. They're not reading the trades and stuff, but even they are feeling it out of the movies and the TV that they're watching. So, which I think then speaks to, well, they're going to have to quit doing that, because I think that's a quick way to lose subscribers, because then they'll just listen to a podcast then. Like, why even bother?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not watching it. So,
and for anybody, I know if you listen to the show regularly, we've talked about it, but Netflix has been rumored to be giving out notes to filmmakers or content creators, however they say,
writers,
to basically have characters like explain what had happened in the example I give is like, if you have characters on a Ferris wheel kissing, then the next day they're in high school and they're walking down the hallway, they're like, hey, that Ferris wheel was last night was a lot of fun, like just because they're expecting you to be looking at your phone. So it's almost like anti-cinema
and not looking at the screen.
Yeah, it's okay, Evan, sorry, I know I cut you off there.
No, that's an interesting point you just brought up too. And it's funny how they like pick and choose what to interfere with and what not to. Netflix, it's like no rhyme or reason to it, I feel like, because I've heard like Tom Segura, for example, talk about how they kind of just let him run wild with bad thoughts and stuff, whereas it feels like
what's
Stranger
a comedy
Things,
special
they get
like
no, Bad Thoughts is not a comedy special. It's his series.
It's his show.
It's the show.
It shows how much
But it's like it doesn't sound like they place those same limitations on him. So why do they do it to some other? You know what I mean?
Well, I know specifically Mike Flanagan was talking about how Midnight Mass came to be one of the best limited series. Like I'd put it up there with Chernobyl and The Terror. But he said the only reason he thinks Midnight Mass was so well formed with little intervention is because Netflix leadership was shifting, the pandemic was happening, and they just kind of let them be and do their thing.
Oh.
But then he said the next Netflix series, he said then he had to pay, then he was getting more.
Oh, okay.
So it could be something like that where
maybe
some projects, they just kind of slip by the radar. But also they occasionally have somebody like with Train Dreams or last year's Rebel Ridge, which is one of the best movies of last year, where if they have auteurs that's going to bring somebody to come back and subscribe just for that movie, then they'll leave them alone a little bit. But for everybody else, then it is probably like you have to use this camera and you have to write in this way, and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the thing I was going to say before, though, is just that I did write that down while I was watching LandLord, that there's tons of exposition through just watching actions play out on the screen. And I love that about it. I love that it's that sort of visual storytelling. Cool. And I think it's harder to pull off than if you just, because especially with the plot of this movie, there's so many small details with this complex, with this group that's the people who are helping the vampire and stuff. Like, there's just a lot of small things that I think it would have been easy to get lost in, like info dumping, and you don't do that at all in this movie. You feel like you're constantly just with this character going through this sort of adventure. So it's interesting hearing your inspirations, and also watching The Woods. How I know I didn't mention it before, but you did, that it's dialogueless. So that short has you're following the character the whole time and nobody speaks. And it was very cool. And it reminded me of, have you seen, there's a movie that Jeremy Gardner did, The Battery. It reminded me of that, in that it's very low key, sort of, the zombie is not necessarily even the point, which I think is how the best zombie movies are. The zombies are not really the point. They're just a storytelling device.
I'm going to shamelessly kiss the ass of the folks who just made We Bury the Dead.
Terrell talked about that.
So phenomenal. And it felt a bit like, oh, dang, somebody else is interested in zombies in the way that I was interested in The Woods. Like, it was really well done. Similar to like the Chris Pine movie that got buried because Paramount Vantage was going under right when they released it, called Carriers. Great road zombie.
I haven't seen that, but I'm aware of it.
Yeah, it came out in 2010 or 2011. It's a road movie after a pandemic, a virus.
Yeah, Carriers was great. I remember watching that. I think I rented that from the video store. And I like that movie. We Buried the Dead it was okay to me. I like Daisy Ridley. I thought she was great in that movie. She carried it for me, 1000%. Yeah. The emotions. Yeah. I like the twists, kind of, sort of. But I feel like that movie was just all over the place. Like that middle part where it shifted into that whole, I don't want to spoil too much. They haven't seen it. But I liked that, and then went back to, I don't know, it was going back and forth with three different movies in one. It felt like an anthology to me with a wraparound. That makes sense.
Which then kind of made it feel, I think, since it wasn't going only one way the whole way, I was kind of digging that.
Okay.
Because then I still felt like the themes were brought together by the end, and then felt more true to life, of just like most road trip films, where it's just like, man, you really wanted this to happen, but then you end up in some chaotic turns. But
exactly, and she had that, but I feel like the ending was like 4 different endings. Like, you could have ended it at either one of those endings they had to those characters, and I think one of them in particular would have made you sit with it a bit more. But I get how it came together, though. Like, the whole movie led to that, I guess, if that makes sense. If you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, with the little
y'all can talk about it. I'm more interested in the conversation than
I will say, to bring it back around to what we were talking about with The Woods, though. Like, the funny thing about The Woods was I think I did that by accident. At the end, it turned out to not have any dialogue. For me, the prompt was, it felt like a cop-out that Tom Hanks talks to a volleyball. It feels like a cop-out that Will Smith talks to his dog, or that mannequin in the I Am Legend adaptation. So I'm not going to do that. When does it actually feel like this character has a motivation to say something? And by the time I'd written it and I was revising it, I was like, oh yeah, there is no dialogue. Like, I just didn't feel like there was a reason that was really prompted by the story. And then otherwise it would just be for the audience, in service to them, but not in service to the story. And so, yeah, I think some people are really loving that aspect of LandLord, where if you're watching it, we're giving you the info. And then I think some people aren't messing with it. And I'm just like, this wasn't for you then. That's fine.
Yeah.
People who like the woods and people who are really responding to the way we did LandLord, like that's who it's for. It's not meant to be for everybody. So, yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to watch The Woods, congratulations. It's on Alter. And I just have to share this.
What's Alter?
I love it.
Is that a streaming app?
Alter is the channel
on YouTube. Yeah.
They do
got you. Okay.
Yeah. But check it out. This is what I love. I couldn't understand the meaning. Someone please tell me is the first one.
174 likes. I love it. But then 32 replies. Very curious.
Period.
Dude, I love it. That I think that's kind of what made our little group rolling out there like want to put our hooks in you. It's the type of films that we cover on here a lot, and that horror movies that the culture creates. There's usually kind of aesthetic driven, right? There's usually not a lot there, like not a lot of meat on the bone. And your film was the complete opposite. Like, I mean, again, I was just like, why is this a vampire movie? It didn't have to be. And to be clear, I am very grateful. And for those listening, there's some good practical effects in here. Like,
shout out to Madeline Shea.
There's some great effects.
Also ended up being our key makeup person, because a $15 to $20 million movie was shooting at the exact same time our little movie was filming. We couldn't get any HMUs, hair makeup. And so she ended up I told her, I was like, we just need a really basic touch up, but thank you, Madeline Shea. She really killed it and did stuff that I've been wanting to do for years, but I just didn't have the budget and then the right project for it. But like one of the earliest special effects I remember being fascinated by is like, how are people doing these wound effects that they're applying to people and make it look real? And so to finally have a project where we could profile that, it was just this recent University of Cincinnati graduate who, for her final art project, was like a full realistic looking dead body in a sleeping bag. And so somebody said, yeah, I know this person who's just doing some light makeup, but they also did this. And I was like, we should meet. Let's see what she could do with some wound effect stuff. And she just was a huge part of why that stuff works. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Back in the day, like if you were going to like a Sam Goody or Suncoast and just buying a random horror movie, a lot of the time, like one kill could be enough. You're like, dude, that head got crushed. And then it's like, perfect. I'll keep it in the collection forever. But now, I don't know. I feel kind of jaded. And it was funny, after watching your movie, the thing that we came up and were most impressed by was that you were using fucking squibs, dude. Like, you just don't, everybody goes digital for gun effect now.
Yeah.
And you can do, I'll tell you, it was a good investment. But,
well, I appreciate that. That was Ohio burn unit. And so those who don't know, I mean, squibs are actual explosive packs attached to an actor. And so that's why
thank you, because I don't know what the hell he was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You using words. I'm sitting here like, I'm trying to wake up. Talking about squigs. What is that? What the fuck? Thank you again, Remington. See, he could be I want him to be my history teacher. He know how to teach.
Yeah. And that was another one of those like early special effects things I remember hearing about. I was like, okay, so there's some sort of explosive charge and they fill a condom up full of fake blood and then they blast out. I was like, that's great. But yeah, I think like we have seen a lot of YouTube videos and even Hollywood productions where it's digital blood. And it's really hard to do realistically. And especially on a low budget, it just made more sense to try and put that money towards doing it for real on set. It's just that's the production value. Like there are some things that I was very adamant about. Like we ended up hiring an armorer to use real blanks for the same reason. But it turned out a couple of years later, I just saw him in the credits. So our armorer was the same one who worked on Eddington.
Okay.
Wow.
To make sure we were handling safely.
Yes.
Yeah. So there were certain things that I was adamant about, that we were going to do all practical effects. If we're going to have weapons in this film, we're going to do it for real, but safely. So there were a lot of conversations with him and the actors and my cinematographer to make sure that we all felt comfortable and we had a good game plan. And then other crazy things that happened, like we were able to get this church that's literally a 5-minute walk from my doorstep to agree for the final showdown to happen in the church. And so my co-producer just went around to the neighborhood, is handing out these letters from the city saying, hey, there's going to be simulated gunfire at this time. So don't call the police and da-da-da. So we just had this like shootout on a church lawn in my neighborhood. It's one of those things where like I was the main producer and then I had 2 co-producers. So like I was trying to remind myself with so many hats, I'm really excited. This is great. And give myself that moment. And then it'd be like, all right, moving on. There were some really great practical things that we did. But it was, it does cost some money if you're going to do it right. And if you're going to do it safely. And so it was nice to have a project to really go for it in terms of raising money and trying to pull some of these things off.
How'd you get the church involved? Like what is that process like?
So during the pandemic, I think much like a lot of us, right when things hit, it was a question of like, what can you do? What can you do to help? And so I started doing Meals on Wheels with the nonprofit that rents an adjacent building to the church. And so they knew me through that for the last 4 years. They knew, oh yeah, Remington, he and his family come here occasionally because they're Presbyterians. They're cool.
What's a Presbyterian?
I am not going to get it right. Basically,
oh, you a teacher? I want to know.
I would call them just cool Christians. Like,
you're a cool Christian. So you get to do a little. Okay, all right.
So
continue, Terrell. What were you?
No. Because I was like, I'm scared I'm gonna get it. Okay, cool, Christian. What'd you call it? Presbyterian? What do you call
Presbyterian.
it?
It's a big thing in the South down here. There's a lot of Presbyterian churches down here.
Oh, it's not just in the South. I mean,
I just feel like they probably see them less, though, right?
But what's a cool Christian? You get to go party and fuck, and then come back and be like, "Oh, praise the be." Like, how does that work?
Oh my god!
I mean, they have women preaching, and they're not.
Oh, they got women.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't know they turn into. I'm sorry, I don't know that.
I'm
didn't
enjoying
know
this. This is great.
That a woman could be like a priest, like father. Oh well, they'll go mother, right?
I don't know what they would officially, but I think the pastor here is Pastor Marisa.
Marisa! I love this. I want a woman pastor.
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
So they just knew what I was about from the documentary work I've done, and then doing Meals on Wheels. So they were the only church that were willing to consider this because I was upfront with them. I'm not somebody who can just burn bridges like producers who come to Louisville from New York or LA. They're just like, we're never going to be here again. I'll just say we're not doing X. And then they see the movie and see that there's like,
oh, that's messed up.
I didn't know
that pescatarian. You gotta be.
So I was really forthright with every church that we talked to. I was like, hey, this is like a social commentary horror. There is going to be some violence, but it's for this reason. Like we're trying to honestly reflect some American history, and then, but in our story, there's a little bit of a comeuppance. Like there's a little bit of that. You want to be able to push back in a maybe cathartic effigy kind of way, and I've left I've left some historical breadcrumbs there, so people. If they look up characters' names, they're going to see that there's some ties to real film history, but also civil rights history. And so that was how I was able to get buy-in from them. They said, okay, you can film. And they were the only church that said yes. And literally, God love them for it. So, yeah.
Nice.
That's great. And I feel like, too, going back to the vampire thing real quick, the way you use the vampires in this movie is similar to the way you use the zombies in the woods, where I don't know, the vampires and the flashy, like what Blade does and those kind of big, it's not the point here. Like it's the vampires are kind of your storytelling device for this allegory, this metaphor that you're. So what was your sort of approach for like putting that together? Did you start with the idea of this is going to be a vampire movie, or did you start with the idea of the woman coming into town and vampires came later?
I think at the time there were 2 short film ideas I think I had, and then they just blended together. To be honest, there was one just revenge thriller fantasy when we were in the middle of all the unarmed Black folks being shot in the early 2010s. I was just like, what happens to a girlfriend or a spouse who sees a cop get exonerated for killing another unarmed Black man? I was just like, what if she just goes and ices that person? And I was just like, that's just headline grabbing, and I just don't think there's a lot of meat to it. So I just kind of put that away. And then at the same time, I was wondering about, when I was a kid, I remember if there was an abandoned building, structure, whatever in the neighborhood, I was always poking around and curious. And I was like, well, what would happen if like your sibling got? Like, what if there's a vampire
got?
So I was imagining like this older sister and her little brother are checking out this abandoned house in some random farmland, and then her brother gets snatched, and then she has to go and like free him, and then burn down the house.
Jeepers creepers.
And so it started to kind of evolve in that direction. And then I watched the 2011 Fright Night remake, and there's that
Colin Farrell.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's that moment where Anton Yelchin runs into a house that is being built, and then he's staring at Colin Farrell like, haha, you can't come in. And then he walks over the threshold, and you see the gears turning, and Anton is like, oh, dang, nobody owns this.
Yeah. Can't invite him in. Yep.
So after I saw that, I was like, wait, I've not seen a vampire movie where somebody is renting. Like, they're always trying to attack people in Fright Night anyways, like, who have their own home. And the Lost Boys, they have their own home. And but what happens if they own your housing? And, like, I just grew up in a lot of different, from terrible to okay apartment complexes. It was like, here's an entree into the genre that I haven't seen done before. And then it's, like, coming from my own experience. And so it was through that process. And then making The Woods. When I was done with The Woods, I was like, I did this art house close to the chest movie. Let's do something that's a little bit more like Lost Boys, and have a little bit more special effects, kind of actiony stuff. And we don't have to be so somber, while synthesizing some of those other references that I already mentioned, growing up with movies like Ghost Dog and The American with George Clooney, these hitman movies, inspiring Adamas' character as this gunslinger, but then the kid kind of representing, similarly the kids in the Monster Squad. Like, I remember when I was that age at 13, I mean, you're more capable than I think adults want to believe. And so I was just like, yeah, this is really, for me as a kid, it was really empowering to see middle schoolers dealing with monsters. And so that was also my tip of the hat in LandLord, having this character Alex. So yeah,
man, we used to joke about how haunted house movies were just an allegory for how the government can't help you with any spiritual dilemma, or like how slasher films just prove like the government can't help you if you're in actual turmoil. And like, because the police are always so, they are not a solution in those films. And I think The Conjuring 2 was the first time I ever saw the police actually be summoned and show up, and then like a chair gets thrown across the room. They're like, no, fuck this. They just leave. And it was like, man, it was so cathartic. But then, and I also thought like maybe all of those kind of like metaphors had been exhausted, but I don't know how I never thought of like land rights and vampires, right? Like vampires are always, I guess because of Nosferatu, they're always kind of like dream invaders, or like there's like it's always a romance. A lot of the time we always sympathize with the antagonist, so it's more about our own mortality that we're worried about, but not property rights. And it's like, I don't know if I agree with the premise here, but I really wanted to ask Terrell. So Terrell, do you think that checks out? If a vampire owns like an apartment building, he could freely enter into any unit?
Yeah, because if he was a vampire and then he died and that's his house, I would assume so. He's still, he ain't lifeless. I don't know. I think that would make sense, but I get what you're saying because they like dead. So I think, you can't go into some place unless you're invited. So I get that.
Man, what a
but that is an
brutal
interesting look.
exploit.
Like say if you die in your house and you own that house and you're a vampire, you want to go back to your house, you could just walk in and out because
Yeah,
I love too that most people, it's either they follow the old school rules or they completely ignore them and do their own thing. And you not only acknowledge the old school rules, but you thought deeper into it and were like, well, actually, though, I think if this was the case, then they could come in. I love it. I think it's a great sort of loophole to the rule, and it makes total sense.
When it comes to genre, that's always what interests me. Is you just ask like, what's the movie you haven't seen before, and. So like when I did The Woods, it was like, I haven't seen a zombie movie like this and exploring it in this way. So let's do it. And so that was the reason why I thought maybe I had something here, and spent a ridiculous number of years developing the scripts and until shooting is, I think especially in America, I think poverty is scarier than Freddy Krueger or any horror character. And I think that's why so many of the horror movies happen in middle and upper class settings, because I think a Hollywood studio is just like, wait, but if we do it in a ghetto, in a trailer park, then it's just for laughs because we're more scared of the class situation than the actual monster. And so for me, I was like, let's take the space seriously, but then tie it into something real that I think so many people have had a terrible landlord. So it'd be something that they could also identify with and very accessible, and be like, oh, of course they would not only take your money, but they would literally bleed you if they could do it,
That's interesting. It's an interesting angle. Because I do think you're right too. Even a lot of times when the poor people are depicted on screen, oftentimes they're the bad people in the horror movie. Like they're the people living in the woods, the poor, scary rural people,
which is the whole crux of Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is why that works so well, is like, we know the tropes so well that we immediately get the setup of Tucker and Dale versus Evil and enjoy that ride. Cause it's just like, these are just guys out hanging out on a hunting trip, and like probably know people who would just be those dudes out on a boat. And then it's just like, why are all these college kids running away from us screaming?
Yeah.
I believe during the Q&A, that was one of the first things you brought up, was just the traditional perspective of an audience looking at like poverty, and how a lot of them, it's just immediately like sympathy. You're like, oh man, look how shitty it is for them. And I had never heard it articulated until you did at the Balboa, where you're like, dude, I was poor. I didn't feel sorry for me. I had fun. Like I lived, I didn't know anything was different until, eventually you do learn. And it's like, oh shit, there's another way to like live. And that was it was such a, like, God, I've been talking about film for too long to never have come to that conclusion. But I think that's why movies like Gummo had such an impact on me, because the like kind of like Gummo's a wild one for a reference point here, because it is like almost like urban fantasy.
I don't think
chaos.
so though, because even in that urban fantasy chaos, there's more authenticity than in 90% of movies that depict poverty,
Well, I think the thing that turns us off is like when people are trying to teach us a lesson. Like, your film, you're dealing with social commentary, which normally I am allergic to. And it's not because I don't want to hear about plights or learn things. I think that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with film. That's why I used to love the IFC channel, because I'm like, oh, I'm learning different perspectives. But they were neutral, and they let me kind of come to my own judgment, where now you get so many people who want the accolades for doing something right. They all think they're like fucking paladins or something.
They're either too neutral or they're too hammer-fisted, right? They're too like
so many,
blatant, like,
I think part of it is, I think people in Hollywood are terrified of that first comment on the altar link to The Woods. I didn't understand it. They're like, no, we need to make sure they understand what our message is and be as didactic as possible. Whereas if you watch my documentary work and then hopefully it plays out in LandLord, other than what you might read in the synopsis, I'm not beating you over the head with anything. I'm just like, here's the world, here's the characters, here are the dynamics. Hopefully some people are going to be like, oh, there's kind of a weird power dynamic between this character and this character because of the visual presentation of things. It's not about, like, in Hollywood, the vampire or the sheriff, these white antagonists in the movie, they would drop the N-word or say something really messed up. And that's how, okay, we have been telegraphed. These are bad guys and they are racist. Therefore, we're supposed to hate them. As opposed to like in the original Night of the Living Dead, nobody comments on Ben's race, but he's a black guy in a white farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. There's a weird tension to that, but Romero doesn't have to say anything about it. He doesn't have to have characters say anything about it because he just visually presents it. So I totally agree with you. Like if it's a message film, then I think you've done a bad job because then you've been really didactic about it versus letting people feel it and draw it out in conversations after the screening, hopefully, you know?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think also the not being so blatantly obvious or being so forward with the messaging is what gets people to think about what they just watched. If it's obvious when it's over, it leaves their brain. It's done, you know?
Yeah. You didn't have to do any work for it. And then it's also more accurate to real life. I mean, it's a really weird tension that's unstated. Like class in America, like I remember right when I was about to graduate, I just signed up for some temp agency to try and make some money and there was a big derby event that was happening. And so I was sent to the Pendennis Club. This is the place that Hunter S. Thompson talks about in the Kentucky Derby is blank and depraved. I'm blanking on it. And when I was there, you know, I had Walmart work shoes and just whatever black shirt and pants that I could find. And I'm in the middle of some derby prep for the event. And I look down a hallway and randomly there's just a quiet amongst everything that's happening. And I see a dude about my age at the end of this hallway in some fancy foyer, and he's in his derby finest. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and then we just go our separate ways. And it's something that's felt, but it's not spoken of, you know, like, and it's the same thing with a lot of racial matters in America. Is like nobody wants to talk about the weird tension between like how many people are working the derby that are black in Louisville versus all the people who are enjoying it. Like proportionally, is it way more white people? Nobody wants to talk about it. And so in a similar way, when you present these dynamics without overly preaching about it, then it is a little bit more reflective of real life. And then you get those really interesting audience responses where like a black audience watching Rubber Town had a really fun, immediate response to an interaction that I had with a police officer. Whereas a white audience watching Rubber Town, it was definitely really like nervous, but it was not as like knowing. Because I think the African American audience for Rubber Town is like, oh yeah, here come the police. Like they're gonna bother Remington because that's what they do. It's just like it just reflects different lived experiences, and so so that's also why you want to leave the canvas in as much of a neutrally presented visual place as possible, so then people can bring their experience to it. It's not that I am presenting it neutrally, like I'm giving you these images for a very specific reason, but it is open to your interpretation still. Like I'm not going to tell you how to feel. Hopefully I visually guided you into some emotional states, but I'm not going to tell you what to think. You know,
I can't imagine finishing this movie and not being just overwhelmed with emotion of some sort, you know? Like, I mean, just when the ending of this thing hits, it's fucking heavy. And it feels like everything that you've just watched. And that's another compliment I feel like you deserve too, is that when I went into this, I did not look at the runtime before I watched it, and I didn't feel it at all. It feels like it flies by, but I think it is due to that sort of immersive viewing experience where it feels like you're so locked in that it moves quick, you know?
Yeah.
You're not distracted. You're not on your phone and shit while it's on. So,
yeah, I mean, this is why I've tried to get as many people to watch it in theaters as possible or beg them to watch it big and loud. Cause I think like the work that we did on the music and the sound design, like I hope that is the thing that's kind of keeping you plugged in. And then we workshopped the hell out of it on the script stage. I took everybody's notes and feedback and then made some adjustments. And then when we edited it, we had like a 50-person work in progress screening where I was testing things out, and then brought that into the edit. And so it was very good to hear from some of the people who were a part of that work in progress a year ago come to the final Louisville premiere here. And they said, oh, there was a lot of like good tightening. It wasn't anything like crazy, like scenes being lost, but they felt like it was different from what they saw at the work in progress. So I was glad to hear that. So yeah, just workshop the hell out of your stuff, and then hopefully you don't feel the runtime.
So, okay, I got a question for the footage foreplay team. When we went into the Q&A, the first question I asked, I felt was a little rude, but I knew Remington was going to be a homie. So I'm like, I could get away with this. This will be a good icebreaker. But I'm curious what y'all thought when, after watching this very like Criterion inspired fish tank release learned film that happens to have vampires in it and does something interesting with an age-old mythology that nobody's ever thought of, and then we get to a town and you see Haddonfield. I was like, wait, what? So I don't know. What did you think, Evan?
I didn't actually see. I think I didn't see the sign because I noticed it too. God. But the first time I noticed it is he says it. The cop says it.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if he's sitting in front of the church, I believe, when he's on the phone or the radio. I forget. I think it's a cell phone.
Yeah.
And he says, he's given the location and he says Haddonfield. And I went, oh man, what?
So you a Michael Myers fan? You like the Haddonfield? You like Halloween, Remington?
I mean, honestly,
Easter eggs. What other Easter eggs did you add in here?
Honestly, John Carpenter's The Fog is more of my favorite, but I was just
really
which checks out.
That's so boring.
Terrell, exactly.
It's the most boring movie ever. But that's so cool. People love it. I just can't get into it. That one or the remake. I don't like either one of them.
You just didn't watch it. You just didn't watch it loud enough and on a dark, spooky night.
I watched it loud enough. Gross. That was not.
No, because for me, I feel like Halloween is more boring. Like
it's not. That movie is thrilling. It's intense. It's like, where'd this man ain't gonna come get me?
You're also talking to somebody who is a history major. So the movie starting with this original historical sin that is going to be paid back. And then the way that music unfolds, I think it's one of his best scores. Like, I think it's better than the Halloween theme. Like, The Fog rocks. But I was just trying to include some little horror breadcrumbs. There are some other ones in there.
What other ones? Let's get some Easter eggs.
That I won't ruin. But I hadn't Haddonfield horror people know it, but then the people who aren't regularly watching horror movies all the time, that it just goes right over. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that, and when I was trying to figure out this puzzle of who you were, that's where that was the conclusion. I'm like, oh, maybe he's not a horror fan, because like, dude, so many indie micro budget horror movies, they all do that where their characters are Jason and Freddy and they're hanging out. It's like, oh, let's go down to Haddonfield Liquor. And you just like, your eyes get strained from rolling the whole time.
Oh yeah. I'd be cringing.
Right? And
Leatherface, belt buckle and all, Russ. You know what I'm talking
about. Dude, exactly. But that's why I was so caught off guard. I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Also, because your film was screaming Dean Cundey to me. You had that beautiful widescreen. You were like, I love a establishing shot, but I also like it when people allow a setting to have like a vibe, and you can feel the location that they're in, so that when we're dealing with the drama, that's still like present. And I feel like in the rapid kind of content filmmaking going on now, there's just no time for that. And I also think it's hard to get like good establishing shots when you're shooting everything guerrilla. So like a lot of horror films just don't have them, or like we'll be in interiors, but we don't even know what the exterior looks like. So we're like, and I don't know it, I was getting like Escape from New York here, and I'm like, I see it, but was such a weird choice, and I could not get over it. So I just had to straight up be like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah. No, it's just a tip of the hat, because I don't think there's much in The Fog that is as iconic as something like Halloween. So I felt like I had to kind of acknowledge my my sources in some sort of way, So Haddonfield's in there. There's a small Salem's Lot reference, and then another Monster Squad reference in there too. So
Okay.
yeah, it'll be fun to when we finally release the movie. It'll be fun to see what people pick up on. So.
Speaking of nods,
okay,
to horror movies that are like overt, and every indie horror movie does it. Every indie horror movie puts Night of the Living Dead on the TV. So you have Carnival of Souls in this one on the TV, which I appreciated greatly. That it was not Night of the Living Dead.
It was something that I'd seen recently, and I just vibe.
I love that movie.
I felt like it worked for that scene, and also like looking at Herc Harvey's work. I mean, he seems like a similar ilk from my coming up in filmmaking. Like I was doing a bunch of Metro TV production work to pay the bills. And so here Herc Harvey was like doing these industrial movies and teaching.
Shake Hands with Danger, which we showed at UF.
Yeah. And so I just, but the funny thing that happened was like, I just, when I was editing that scene, so there's the scene from Carnival of Souls happening on the TV. And so I just played the scene at the duration. And then it just happened to sync up with the moment where she starts screaming as when I wanted the scene to end and they want to turn off the TV. I was just like, this is meant to be here. Just drop it in and move away. And so, yeah, I felt like I needed something public domain horror, but I also didn't want to do the thing where it's like, okay, there's just happens to be a vampire movie on the TV at that exact same time that they're dealing with a vampire, but we'll still do the little horror nod.
No, I was appreciative of that it A wasn't vampires and B wasn't Night of the Living Dead, because it's always it's always either the thing that's happening in the movie that you're seeing it in, or it's Night of the Living Dead. So I was glad it was neither. Sorry, Terrell. I knew I'd forget that if I didn't say it right then. Go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Oh no, he just ended with when the movie comes out. I just wanted to know. So what is the plan for LandLord? It's doing the film circuit right now. It screened another hole in the head. So what's next? And when can people experience this film?
Yeah, I'm hoping that some paperwork is going to be signed soon that will chart that out this year. That's about all I could say until everything is officially settled. But I think definitely after winning a couple of awards,
that, yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm ready and eager to hurry up and get it out in the world. But the other thing I'm working on is reaching out to some folks who screened my work in the past or friends that I know who own independent movie theaters and see how could we kind of keep some theatrical screenings moving along. But again, hopefully there will be some info coming out soon about the release. So it'll be sometime this year. And so to track any info, definitely follow the Instagram page. It's just LandLord Film Official. And we'll be blasting some info there. So.
Are you going to be dropping any physical media, or is that in your plans?
Love
me a Blu-ray.
Yeah, I have been kicking over some stones to try and work on that. And then if we've signed some paperwork, I think there will definitely be a release of some sort. I mean, hell, if I have to do it, I did a Blu-ray for the Derby and a collection of my shorts on my own. So if
you did?
Nice.
I need one.
Is that still available? Yeah, can you still get that?
Yeah, where?
Let's see.
Oh, he looked around his house. Okay.
Oh, he's got the Blu-rays up on the.
Yeah,
you see all his movies?
Yeah.
He's got.
I see him at the top. That's high for me.
All right. While he walked away, how many do you think are Criterion?
Oh, it's not that many.
Okay.
Almost.
You're a history person. What history movies? You got National Geographicals?
Most of this is horror, but then I've organized these by director name. So I think
I like that. I like that. I do that too.
It goes to about their director names. So
all right. What are some of the directors up there?
John Carpenter.
So yeah, we've got John Carpenter, Andrea Arnold, John McTiernan, Darren Aronofsky, Ryan Johnson, from Brick to Looper to Brothers Bloom.
Looper.
If you have not seen Brothers Bloom, you should totally check it out.
It's been on my list for.
I never heard of that. Is that a flower?
It's a great con man movie. It's a lot of fun. Rachel Weisz, Mark Ruffalo, and Adrian Brody. I don't know why it didn't get a bigger release.
Terrell, you'd be happy to know it's on Tubi.
Oh, my favorite. Period.
And, a big inspiration too to just go for it with LandLord and the class dynamic was Matt Reeves's remake of Let the Right One In. I loved Let Me In because it mirrored some of the apartment complexes I lived in, and I was just like, oh, so you can do this. Like I
didn't know Matt Reeves did that. That's tight.
Yeah. And if you watch Let Me In and then watch The Batman, there are shots recreated from Let Me In. So it's like Greg Fraser and Matt Reeves were tinkering with some horror stuff that then they literally brought back for The Batman. There's even that shot though that's almost a recreation of the shot in Halloween where Michael Myers is in the backseat of the car. So at any rate, yeah, those are some of the highlights. Of course, John McTiernan, and then Michael Mann. Byzantium by Neil Jordan. He did Interview with the Vampire, and he came back and then did basically a version of Interview with the Vampire with women. Like, how would women?
I love that movie.
Yeah,
how would women actually deal with the gender dynamics of the 1800s if they became a vampire? Like, they're not immediately going to become rich and well off. So what are they going to do? Saoirse Ronan is in it, and Gemma Arterton. It's really good. So, anyways,
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Do a double feature with Brothers Bloom.
Did you? So, any like sneak peeks or anything, tidbits you can give us from the movie, or anything that you have in the works?
I'd love to get a behind the scenes scoop.
Yeah, we like some tea over here. Like,
let's see. We were okay. So I'll say this: we shot for 25 days. So,
wow!
If you have a feature and you want to make sure you have enough time, I was just reading about every director's first feature or second feature and how adamant they were about what they wanted. And so the big thing that consistently came through is just like, don't do 18 days. Like, unless you have something specifically that you can pull off in that amount, it was just like nothing that was scheduled was lost. Like we didn't cut days, we didn't lose pages. And so I fought for that time. So if you're thinking about doing a feature, some people are just used to grinding it out in a really small window. I think movies can be made in different ways. And that also came through from advice from below the line crew here in Louisville, who they had way more experience than me. So I was like, my friend Jeff Stortz, he runs a short film showcase here in town called Below the Line. I was like, Jeff, here's my shoot schedule. I think this is about what it would take. Does this look about right to you? And he was like, yeah. And then also give yourself 2-day weekends so you can really reset emotionally. And then that also gives your crew some real proper rest. And so fortunately, things went really smooth. And part of it is because I asked for advice and I took the advice that was most valid. So anybody can make a feature, but just you got to workshop the hell out of the idea and make sure it's strong enough to sustain it. And then you got to go talk to people and ask for their advice. And that's the only way it's going to happen and go smoothly. So I think that would be the biggest thing. So, yeah.
Below the Line looks rad. Do they do like regular screenings out in Kentucky or?
Bless his heart. Jeff Stortz is a first AC. So he is working. That dude is busy. I think he was the first AC on the film that's about to come out, Dead Man's Wire with Gus Van Sant. And so between projects, he's then putting out a call on Below the Line Shorts, I think is the Instagram handle, saying, hey, anybody in the area that has a filmed music video, doc, whatever, within a 15-minute runtime. And then he does a showcase of it. And so it's been a great way for us to kind of get connected, because I think filmmakers were often developing projects in isolation. And so this has been a good way to kind of semi-regularly get together. They do it quarterly. And that's where a lot of our crew came from, as like I had shown enough shorts over the last few years that people get to know me and knew that I was working on making this feature. And then with Jeff's help, we were able to get almost all of our crew was local, other than our armorer. And then, sort of not local, but still in the area, Ohio Burn Unit in Ohio, just down the road. And then Madeline Shea, because there's a good crew base here. It's just, is there a good community? I think so that who's available and
dude, that's the toughest thing. is finding people. I feel like, especially if you're, somewhere like us, that's not like, it's not a film hub. It's not LA. You're not just surrounded by people who do these things all the time. It's tough to find, not only people who are into it, but people who have those skills.
The other thing though is, don't just go by somebody's title and think that's the only thing they can do. Because I was basically doing an Ocean's 11 montage. I literally lured my advisor from my U of L campus theater days, lured him out of retirement to be our line producer. He's like, I don't know what this is, Remington. I was like, you've dealt with budgets, Stu, and contracts and events and invoicing. You know how to do this job. You just don't know it yet. Come make a movie with me. And bless his heart, he said yes. He came out of retirement to do it. And there were some similar things where I just threw people into a role where I was like, I know you're a hard worker and you're going to add to a good set experience. We'll figure out the rest. But I know you're going to take ownership of your job. So let's just do it. So I had some former students of mine. One was my AD. Other were like key PAs that were doing a little bit of everything. And we paid everybody. Like, I won't say much more about that.
That's incredible.
There was a really funny interaction I had with somebody who was like, you shouldn't pay everyone. And I was like, no. Everyone's getting paid something. Like, we may not have a lot of money, but now that I had gotten up to this level and had raised money, I was like, everybody's got to get paid something at least.
Period. Like a good pedestrian. So I love that. So love it. Okay, cool. So what? So you already plugged your Instagram. Is there anywhere else that people can go and get updates on the film or you or whatever else is happening in your life that you want to plug?
Yeah, I'm hoping during the summer I'll have some time and hopefully by then either LandLord is released or the release strategy is in place. So during the summer, hopefully I'll be writing the first draft of the next idea. But in the meantime, it takes so long to get these features out and develop them that I'm hoping to, at least do one music video, just something short that I can immediately put out there. So I'm starting to go to previous collaborators on LandLord and see who might be available and try and come up with the next idea. And so, my website is just remingtonsmith.com. And then I'm also anything that's tagged with LandLord on Instagram. Usually it's tagged with me, and it's the Remington Smith on Instagram as well. So, yeah.
Nice.
Perfect.
We got to get you doing a found footage horror faux documentary to bring you back out here too.
That'd be sick.
I mean, that first short film I did was a faux documentary about these guys running around as a neighborhood watch unit. It would be hilarious.
I know you're hiding that one, right?
I mean, it's probably online somewhere, but it was.
What's it called? Ivan's gonna find it.
No, well, here, if I'm gonna plug anything, look up Pink versus Ninjas, Nazis, and
he does not want you to see that other one.
That was my second short film. And when I rewatched that, I'm just like, I didn't know how long short films were supposed to be. And I was just like, I think we did what we set out to do, which is just, this is going to be an airplane-esque romp. And it's absolutely insane. Oh my God. I don't know about watching
dude.
Here we go, dude. Let's jump in a little and see what we got going here. Look at that. Dude, we skip right to a 360 camera angle. Look at that shit, dude. Come on.
This was just like, we could just do it, right? Yeah. Oh, and then he turns into the Hulk.
Oh my, he turned to the Hulk.
Hell yeah.
Oh, he literally turns into the Hulk. Oh my God. It's clobbering time. Oh wait.
All right. Stop this before we ruin his contract with Criterion.
All right.
He still wants to get an A24. Turn that off. Also, you're booked. So see you in March.
That was great.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, that was it for this episode of Footage Foreplay. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Thanks for having me,
buddy. That was fun. Yes, you're awesome,
Remington.
Remington.
Man. That was great.
Thanks for listening to Footage Foreplay. If you enjoy the show, please consider leaving a review, sharing it with a friend, or simply hitting like. These small gestures are a great free way to support this mayhem, and if you find some footage we should be fondling, email us at footageforeplay@gmail.com. Check back every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes, and remember, don't skip the foreplay.